Y'all, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about tips for successful co-parenting. So this is not going to be a tell-all about my personal situation, but when I was, coming up with kind of what I wanted to say for this video, it dawned on me that, as some of you all know, which I've said in previous videos, I come from divorced parents. My parents divorced when I was 2. So I never even realized that my parents were co-parenting as I was growing up. That literally just dawned on me within the past hour as I was kind of coming up with my thoughts and what I wanted to say. And I tried to go back, and I can, to that time and see if any of the tips that I'm saying is what I saw my mom and dad do, and it is. And so it's interesting how you can give tips for co-parenting from the child's perspective and then as a parent co-parenting from your perspective. Now, disclaimer, my daughter is 3, she will be 4 in exactly 1 week from today. So I have a 4-year-old daughter. So obviously, and I have not been co-parenting the whole time. We are in a good place right now, but we are co-parenting right now is kind of how I would classify our relationship. And so back to my disclaimer is, I obviously have not been co-parenting for so long, so these are just tips that I have picked up along this short journey. I know there are some of you all who have kids, teenagers, adult children that you have been co-parenting for years and stuff. So please drop your knowledge in the comments below, those who have maybe teenagers, and the tips for co-parenting with teenagers and a 4-year-old is maybe different. You may have some nuggets of gold. So please share your knowledge in the comments below, because I feel like, this subject and platform and this video can be a blessing and helpful to others who may be starting that journey or are intimidated by the co-parenting journey. So co-parenting takes 2 mature adults and with the same goal of, just being the best parents you can be for your child or your children. Whether you do end up getting back together, whether you don't end up getting back together and both parents go their separate ways and remarried, which in my case, when I was a child, both my parents, they divorced and they both actually remarried within the same year. I think it was like 95. It was like 95, both my mom got remarried and my dad got remarried within the same year. So I'm just going to share a few tips that I have, done and used and try and live by. So my baby is the happiest little girl she can be and knows that she's loved, and she sees her mommy and her daddy cordial and happy and just in a great place. There was a time where my daughter saw me sad a lot, and thankfully, she was younger. She was like right before 2 and then right up until a little after 3. So for about a year and so, I remember being depressed. And while I was there, I didn't know I was depressed. But as I got out of it, I looked back and noticed that I was depressed and sad and whatnot. And so, the biggest thing is your child, and just both being the best parents you can be for your child. So my first tip, and these are in no order of most important, these are I just wrote them off, just told God, just use me in this video, help me explain, some great information that people can use to help them in their personal situations. And the first thing I wrote down was, don't badmouth the other parent in front of the child. No matter what the situation, no matter if they did you dirty, if they really just aren't good people, because that hurts the child. Because no matter what, a child is always gonna naturally love their parents. You know what I'm saying? Especially if the child's never seen any bad behaviors, or they don't know bad behaviors because they're baby, or whatever the case may be. Don't badmouth the other parent in front of the child. And that's one thing I can go back as a little girl. I never remember hearing my mom badmouth my dad or my dad badmouth my mom. Yes, I have seen them get into arguments and stuff like that, but when I was with my mom at her house, when I was with my dad at his house, that never happened. And I think that's huge, because that only hurts the kid. That only makes the kid feel conflicted and sad, and you never want your kid to feel like they have to take sides or they have to love one parent more than the other. So I would say, as a number one, be very conscious especially as your child gets older. Like Logan's about to be 4 and she is at the age where she listens to everything. Like I could be on the phone talking to my girlfriend, like cooking dinner. She's out here watching TV and she, you know, she'll pick up something that I said and whatnot. So that's something that you have to be very conscious about, is not bad mouthing the other child, the parent in front of your child. If you're going to have a conversation where you're going to go into detail about specifics, have that conversation separately. Say you're on your way to pick up your kid from school or daycare. Have that conversation when you're on the phone on the way to get them, when they're not around you, where they're not home with you, where they're sleeping and you are somewhere else, and you can talk freely. Because like I said, the goal is happy kid. You know, it's not their fault that situations happen, that relationships and that marriages fail. So don't badmouth the other parent in front of the child. That's huge. At least I think so. Second tip for successful co-parenting is communication. I can say that sometimes you will go through periods where you two don't really communicate, and that's fine. But communication about the child. So if you have a schedule worked out where, you know, both of you all pick up and see the child, y'all live in the same area, you know, stay on top of your communication. If you're supposed to pick up the kid at a certain time and things happen, don't just not show up. Say that. If, you know, you want them because, you know, whatever it is, because I haven't gone through a lot of situations, I'm very blessed, very thankful, for my situation and where we are right now. And, you know, it's in God's hands where we go. So communication is everything. I remember there was a point where we didn't talk. It was just strictly about Logan. There was a point where we weren't verbally talking. It was just through text. I would never keep my daughter from her father, and I would never prevent them ever talking, because I remember, life is just funny. I remember being a little girl, being with my mom and wanting to see my dad and wanting to talk to my dad. And my mom never stopped that. She never, you know, prevented me from seeing him. And so I think everything happens for a reason, and it's amazing that, you know, I can kind of see situations that I was in as a little girl, and my daughter kind of being in similar situations, but having great parents who set a great precedence for me, without even realizing. Like I said, I didn't even think about like me as the child in a co-parenting situation when I was initially thinking about this video, but within the past hour, I was like, wow, my parents were co-parenting, you know. So it's just interesting how things work. But communication, if y'all, every time y'all talk on the phone, it's argument, communicate through text, communicate through email, but still communicate so y'all understand what's going on with the child. If the child has to go to the doctor, if the child's getting bad grades in school, no matter what it is, just keep that line of communication open, because you each deserve it. As the parent, as two parents who love your child, you each deserve to be as involved as you want, and to know what's going on. Okay. Step 3, compromise. Now, compromise can be really hard, and it's all about not being selfish, because it's all about the child. And sometimes you want to be selfish because you do everything. Every morning, you cooking dinner. You are physically doing everything in the day-to-day routine, and you know, sometimes you don't want to compromise. I remember the first time I had to compromise. I was in Florida, me and my daughter were in Florida at the time. Her dad's in Atlanta, and he wanted her for Father's Day. And I didn't want her to go up there. And it wasn't because I didn't want him to see her. I just didn't want to not be with her. You know, you get so used to having your little attachment, your little shadow with you, your baby. And I didn't want to not be without her. And so it was definitely a soul-searching moment. He threw it out there, asked me, and it would be a situation where we would have to both drive about 2.5 hours to meet up. So, you know, I really went to God, and I told God that I didn't want to be selfish. So I went to God and I prayed about it. I asked God for strength. I asked God to help me keep my emotions in check. And, you know, of course, I'm not even going to go into family, because you know family will take your side, especially if whatever the case may be. But I had to do what was right for my situation. My daughter has an amazing dad. He's an awesome dad. He's a great person, and he wanted to see his daughter, have his daughter for Father's Day weekend. So I made the decision, and I got mentally prepared, and I think that's the thing that made it all go smooth. I got mentally prepared. So I started thinking about, okay, so the drive up there. So me and her, I'm driving 2.5 hours to our meeting spot. I'm gonna physically hand her off. Then I'm gonna have that 2.5 hours back by myself driving. You know, I'm gonna have those few days by myself without her, and then I'm gonna have that 2.5 hour drive to go pick her up and then bringing her home. So I literally, like, for me, I just had to like mentally prepare for it, which I did. And you know, made the drive up there, handed her off. I wasn't as sad as I thought I would be coming back home because I had mentally prepared for it. I knew, like, okay, the sooner I drop her off, the sooner I'll get her back. And I was listening to some ebooks at the time, so I had some great ebooks that I listened to on the way back home. Got home, it was a great weekend, a nice little break for me. Super excited to go get her. And so that was like my first big test of compromise, being able to compromise and saying, yes, you can have her for the weekend. That was the first time she was like away from me with him and whatnot. And it went fine. And I know he appreciated it. And I know he saw that I was compromising with him, and it really did bring our co-parenting relationship. It grew our co-parenting relationship because it showed him that I respected his feelings and his wants to see his daughter, and it showed me that he wanted to be a part of his daughter's life, and he loves her, and that's all you'd want. Because like I said, I was that little girl who wanted to go visit my dad. I loved my dad. I loved my mom. I loved my family, you know? So compromise is another thing that's huge. You don't, and the thing I think people think is they have to make that yes or no decision right then and there. If you are asked to do something, say, okay, I'll think about it. Okay, let me ponder on it. And take your time to ponder. Take your time to cry if it makes you sad. Take your time to pray if you need to pray. And then give that decision. So day by day. Co-parenting is day by day. Day by day. The next tip is forgiveness. Forgiveness is huge in any kind of relationship, whether it's a relationship with your parents, relationship with your friends, platonic relationship, a romantic relationship, relationship with your children. Forgiveness is key. And so when it comes to co-parenting, being able to forgive for the past, whatever they may be, you forgiving that other person forgiving you, and just having a clean slate, a clean heart of moving forward for the child, not harboring any bad feelings, because it will come out, and you got to take care of you. When you're co-parenting, you got to take care of you so you can take care of those kids, and so you can continue to live your life and do what you got to do. So forgiveness is huge. So, and it takes time. It takes time. Doesn't mean you have to, you know, be all honky-dory and lovey-dovey and friendly and whatnot, but so you could be cordial and you could be nice and kind, and so that your kids could feel that positive energy between the two of you. And the last tip that I have is to don't compare, and I think this is huge. I've seen this a lot. I've never experienced this with my family, like with my parents, and then I've never experienced this with my daughter and you know, her dad. But I've seen this, whether it be on TV and movies or in like other real life situations. Do not compare the other parent's bad qualities to the child. Like, for instance, if say your child is messy and you compare, you know, you're sloppy just like your dad or just like your mom, or comparing some kind of bad habit that one parent does to the child. It hurts the child. It really doesn't put a good taste in the child's mouth. And, you know, going back to the first tip, you don't want to talk bad about the parent in front of the child, and then you don't want to compare one of the child's qualities to one of the parent's bad qualities, if that makes sense. So just try your best to think before you speak, to really just take a beat, because I know sometimes it's hard not, especially if your kid's not listening and they know better, not to like just go off the handlebars, but you know, it's worth it. It's worth it for the mental health of your child and for you the mental health of you, and just for your overall energy, your overall well-being, you know. So I hope this helped. Like I said, I'm not a parenting expert. I'm not a co-parenting expert. I am new in this whole journey, and you know, I have learned things that have helped me in my situation, and I know there's a lot of people going through the same situation as well. So if you are new to my channel, thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe, sign up for one of my 3-day prayer challenges. I have my dreams and goal challenge, and I have my heartbreak challenge. You can sign up for both, and leave any tips you have in the comments below. You never know who you're helping by sharing your story and your words. So I hope you'll have a great day. Love you. Bye.